Welcome. So excited you're here. This week we are going over John chapter 1. And this chapter is about the identity of Jesus Christ, who he was before he came to earth and who he was on the earth. Christ created everything. Nothing was made without his help and direction. And he created this beautiful world and everything on it. He wants us to enjoy it. Imagine anything you've worked hard to create. Isn't it so fun to share it with others and to see it bring them joy? In verse 4, we learn that Christ is the life and the light of men and women. This light guides, helps, and directs the whole human family. In verse 5, it says, Jesus is the light of the world, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehendeth it not. When I was going through the darkest times in my marriage, I felt this darkness. I didn't see the way out. I was fully immersed in dark thoughts and dark feelings. And these produced a version of myself that was dark. I wasn't living up to my divine potential or my true identity. I knew all the gospel principles and the spouse I wanted to be and how I wanted to act, but it was all lost on me during this time. I didn't get it. I knew I wanted to have charity and love and be a person who forgave and repented. I just couldn't seem to figure out how to do it. Much of the life coaching work I did uncovered what was keeping me so stuck. None of it that I learned and practiced was contrary to the teachings of Jesus Christ. Instead, it really further helped me to discover why I was so far removed from my true identity, who I truly was. And so if you're struggling, you can discover why as well. The next verses in John explain that John the Baptist's role was to witness of Christ. We learn that John was not the light, but in verse 9, Christ was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. That's every single one of us. Because Christ is the light, he lights us. He's the way to discovering or rediscovering the light we all have within us. Christ freely gives his light to every one of us who seeks it. So, what is your true identity? This is important because that's your light to discover and to share. Our prophet, President Nelson, told the young single adults in May of 2022 what our true identity is by sharing this. And I quote, for example, if I were to rank in order of importance the designations that could be applied to me, and this is the prophet talking, I would say, first, I am a child of God, a son of God, then a son of the covenant, then a disciple of Jesus Christ, and a devoted member of his restored church. Next would come my honored titles such as husband and father, then apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. Do you see how far down these things are? And then he says, all other labels that have applied to me, such as medical doctor, surgeon, researcher, professor, lieutenant, captain, PhD, American, and so forth, would fall somewhere down the list. I thought this list of the prophet ranking his identities was fascinating. I've gone over this list in order in my mind many times since. What exactly was he saying? I believe he was emphasizing that the identity that ranks of greatest importance, like number one, is our true identity as a son or daughter of God. God is the literal father of my spirit and of yours. I am the daughter of the greatest king in the universe, not just in this world. I have the potential of a daughter of the king of the universe. Every single one of us has that potential. What a powerful thought. Every other identifier comes after this knowledge and truth. So while coaching, my main purpose is to dispel the false beliefs and lies that are keeping my clients stuck. They are lies that they've told themselves, that they've bought into, lies that they've also told themselves about others, and they're also lies others have told them that they believe. This mortal world is expert in tearing down our true identities with its philosophies that keep us and our potential hidden in darkness. So, what is the way to dispel these beliefs? For me and my clients, it's to uncover the truth about themselves and light within them and others. My work is to illuminate the light they already have from Christ and help them recognize that light in others. So, how do you find the light that is within you? It's way easier to find it in others when you first find it in yourself. If you are in the darkness like I was, what can you do? My first work seemed selfish and contrary to the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's why I didn't try it for years. It seemed to be the world's way, but I've discovered that it's not. I actually had to start doing the work of answering my desires. Your desires are giving you clues of how to find the light within you. I've come to know that our desires, the ideas that come into our heads, are often from God, but we are very good at smashing them down with excuses or impossibilities the minute they enter our minds. We quickly talk ourselves out of these ideas that would help us uncover our true identity, and we say things like, it would take too much time. It's too expensive. It's selfish. It would be hard. I wouldn't be as good as others at this. So instead of squashing the ideas and thoughts that come into your head, start not only embracing them but acting on them. I had to ask myself questions like, what lights you up? What are you curious to learn? What have you always thought might be fun? What would bring purpose, joy, beauty, and variety into your life? That is your first step in uncovering your true identity. It was hard at first. I had to try to do the right thing, or I had tried to do the right thing for so long by putting others first, including my husband and my children, and I put my desires on the back burner just for later. Joseph Campbell coined the phrase, follow your bliss. He was a famous teacher of mythology, and he had no idea that his words would be so powerful and remembered. Campbell inspired some of the world's greatest films, including Star Wars, and he's responsible for coining this term, follow your bliss. Now let's turn the question to you. Who are you? And who is your spouse? First and foremost, you are both children of God. And when you follow your bliss, you're answering the call to be who you really are. I recommend you make a list of 10 things that you love to do. If you are too far removed from your bliss, think back to when you were a child. What made you the very most happy? What made you really happy before life got complicated? Those things will bring you happiness again because it's part of who you are. I think we're most like ourselves when we're little. In college, the bliss that sticks out to me was snow skiing. I planned my entire schedule around skiing. I went to school full time and I also worked 25 hours per week, but I planned my schedule around skiing 3 times per week. Why? Because it was something that really lit me up. How do you know what lights you up? You'll feel more alive when you're doing it. You will lose track of time while doing it. Often, even doing it alone is still fun. When you're doing it, you feel happy and grateful. It has a positive impact in your life. You're excited. You're usually creating something, usually not consuming. In my case with skiing, I was creating better physical and mental health. When ideas come to your head of things that even might light you up, no more pushing them down. Give yourself permission to start thinking about how to take that class or learn that skill or make the time. Dare to dream. Get curious about following your bliss. What could it possibly be? So back to skiing. My husband and I love to ski together. In fact, when we were engaged, I had a job at Brighton Ski Resort. My husband got a season pass there because we were engaged and married during that ski season. He joked that part of the reason he knew I was the right one was because he got a free season pass. We taught all 5 of our kids to ski or snowboard, and we love the sport. We've made lots of memories as a family on ski slopes. But the last few years, I've started to get motion sick from skiing. I've tried everything to fix it, and some have temporarily worked. But over time, especially the past year or two, it has gotten worse. Finally, this past Saturday, I got really sick after the 5th run. I went and sat in the lodge, and I felt sick for a full 24 hours after. When I got home and I still felt so nauseous, I realized that I was done skiing for good. I'm no longer able to follow that bliss. I'm not willing to pay tons of money to feel super sick anymore. When this realization hit, I cried. I know it may sound silly, but I felt really a lot of grief over this loss. I thought about how much bliss skiing had brought me for so long. I would miss it. I also imagined my family making memories without me. I realized that not being able to follow this bliss in my life helped me to understand how my son has felt, who can't play tennis anymore because of his diagnosis. That was his bliss. Tennis was his thing. I have more sympathy and compassion, and I now understand better how he felt giving up what he loved. Another important truth I recognized was that our bliss can change. I believe that God can and will give us new bliss. And I started looking for evidence for all the new bliss that God has helped me create in my life and will help me to create. For instance, 5 years ago, I didn't know a sport like pickleball existed. Now I play it 5 days a week, even when I was able to ski. The very most in my life, I was only able to ski 3 times a week. That is just one example. Can you find evidence that your bliss can change and you can still find great joy in new possibilities? Get curious. Now, back to my marriage. As I quit making my husband the cause of my unhappiness and instead chose to start making my own happiness by finding and acting on my bliss, I started to feel more light. I started to feel more like myself. My husband started to feel better too. As he noticed me giving myself permission to be happy and do things that brought me joy, he started to look for his own happiness. Our spouses feel so much better when we feel better. It has to start with one of you. We both gave each other permission and time and even money to start to follow our bliss, and happiness ensued. What helped us was giving each other a certain amount of money per month that we each got, and neither of us had to account for it to the other. So, not only did this create a better version of me, it created a better relationship for us. This will improve your marriage. It's not selfish. Your spouse loves for you to be happy. Your happiness matters. Your bliss matters, and so does theirs. So back to my skiing dilemma. A couple days after I decided that I was done downhill skiing for good, a thought came into my head that cross-country skiing might be something to try. I tried a couple of times before, and I always compared it to downhill skiing, and I talked myself out of it. I thought it was boring. But this past week, I asked my husband to rent for us some cross-country skis and to go with me. We tried it this week, and it was much more fun than I remembered. I started to see the advantages. I have a great groomed trail close to my house. I can bring my dogs. It's peaceful and beautiful. It's a great workout, and I don't get motion sick, most importantly. I'm so glad I didn't smash the idea. I don't do that anymore. Last week in Luke 2, we learned about the wise men, how they were following their bliss. They loved astrology. They studied the night sky, and this led them to Jesus. One thing I've noticed is that when we follow our bliss, often we're able to bless the lives of others. We end up making it something that contributes to the human race in general. We also learned that the shepherds came with haste to find Christ. When you're discovering your bliss and the ideas pop into your head, make haste and act on them. Notice that I rented the cross-country skis the week the idea came to me. Act before your brain talks you out of it with excuses. The last thing to remember is that bliss is found most often in creating, not consuming others' creations. We were born to create. We are gods in embryo. As you are learning to follow your bliss, you are finding the godlike light within you, the light Christ gave to every one of us. So for 15 questions that I ask myself all the time to find my bliss and to become an irresistible spouse, go to charlotteshieldscoaching.com. When you ask great questions, you will get great answers. See you next week, and don't forget to seek and expect miracles.